My name is Leanne Rain. I'm 28 years old, and 2 weeks ago, I thought I was living a fairy tale. I was about to marry Marcus Williams, tech mogul millionaire, the man who promised me forever. I had my dream dress, a venue that cost more than most people's houses, and 300 guests ready to watch me become Mrs. Williams. But fairy tales don't exist. And family? Family will sell your soul for the right price. Let me tell you how I discovered that everything I believed was a lie. How my own blood betrayed me for money, and how I turned my wedding day into their worst nightmare. It started with a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. I was staying at my childhood home the night before my bachelorette party. Mom insisted, said it would be traditional to spend time together before the big day. I should have known something was wrong. My mother, Patricia Rain, had never cared about traditions unless they benefited her somehow. I was in the kit, Rain making tea, when her phone rang in the living room. She'd stepped outside to water her plants, leaving the device on the coffee table. The ringtone was Marcus's personalized tone, the one I'd set up months ago when we started planning vendor meetings at Mom's house. Why was my fiance calling my mother at 11 p.m.? I froze, tea kettle trembling in my hand. Through the window, I could see Mom bent over her rose bushes, completely absorbed. The phone kept ringing. Something cold settled in my stomach. I set down the kettle and walked toward the sound. The phone went silent, then immediately started ringing again. This time, I answered, "Patricia, thank God." Marcus's voice flooded through the speaker, relief so thick I could taste it. "I thought you weren't going to pick up. Is she there?" My throat closed. I managed a whisper that sounded nothing like my mother. "No." "Good, listen. Sophia's getting suspicious. She keeps asking questions about the Miami trip. What should I tell her?" Sophia. My cousin Sophia. My maid of honor. My best friend since childhood. The woman who'd helped me pick out my wedding dress. Who'd thrown me 3 separate pre-wedding parties. Who'd held my hair back when I was sick with nerves last month and told me how lucky I was to find true love. The world tilted sideways. Marcus? I found my real voice. Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. "Leanne? Shit, I thought. Your mom said." I hung up. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold the phone. Miami trip. Sophia asking questions. The pieces were scattered around me like broken glass, but I could already see the picture they made. The front door opened. Mom walked in, humming, brushing dirt off her hands. "Bella, honey, did you hear my phone? I thought I heard it ringing." I held up the device. Her face went white. "It was Marcus," I said calmly. "He mentioned something about Miami and Sophia." Mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Then she straightened, and I watched my loving mother transform into someone I'd never seen before. Someone cold, calculating. "Sit down, Leanne. We need to talk." But I was already moving past her, heading for the stairs. "I need to call Sophia." "Don't." Mom's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't call anyone. Not yet." I stopped on the 3rd step. "Why not, Mom?" She wrung her hands, leaving muddy streaks on her pale fingers. Because it's complicated. There are things you don't understand. Then explain them." Mom walked to the bar cart, the one that had been Dad's before he died 5 years ago. She poured herself 3 fingers of whiskey and drank half of it in one gulp. "Your cousin and Marcus, they've been seeing each other." The words hit me like physical blows. Each one landed with perfect precision, designed to cause maximum damage. "How long have you known?" She finished the whiskey. 6 months. 6 months. Half the length of our engagement. The entire time we'd been planning our future, Marcus had been building something else with Sophia. And my mother, the woman who'd raised me alone after Dad's death, who'd sacrificed for my education, who'd cried with joy when Marcus proposed, had known. "Why didn't you tell me?" Mom's hands shook as she poured another drink. "The wedding's in 2 weeks, Leanne. Everything's paid for. The deposits, the vendors, the honeymoon. Do you have any idea how much money Marcus has invested in this?" Money. It always came back to money with her. "How much?" I asked quietly. "What? How much did he pay you to keep quiet?" Mom's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like the woman who'd sung me lullabies when I was small. Then the mask slipped back into place. "It's not like that." "How much, Mom?" She couldn't meet my eyes. 50,000. $50,000. The price of my trust. The cost of my dignity. I sat down on the stairs, legs suddenly unable to support me. When? He gave it to me 3 months ago, said it was for your wedding expenses, but I knew what it really was. Payment for my silence. 3 months ago. Right around the time I'd started noticing small changes in Marcus. How he'd started working late more often. How his phone was always face down during dinner. How he'd become distant during our intimate moments, like his mind was somewhere else. Or with someone else. Does Sophia know? About the money? Mom shook her head quickly. No. She thinks this is all just passion. She thinks he's going to leave you for her after the wedding. After the wedding, of course. Why break up with the bride when you could have the wife's money and the mistress's body? I stood up slowly, my legs steadier now. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something sharper. Cleaner. I'm gonna bed. Leanne? We need to figure out what to do. Good night, Mom. I climbed the stairs to my old bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed where I dreamed of my wedding day as a little girl. Then I pulled out my laptop and started planning. Not the wedding Marcus and Sophia thought they were manipulating. The funeral. For their reputations, their relationships, their futures. I started with phone records. Marcus had added me to his family plan 6 months ago, a romantic gesture, he'd said. Shared responsibility. What he hadn't considered was that I could access the detailed billing online. The records painted a clear picture. Hundreds of texts to Sophia's number, often late at night. Calls that lasted hours during his supposed business trips. The Miami number that kept appearing, a hotel I discovered after a quick search. The Fontainebleau Miami Beach. Presidential suite. 3 separate weekends over the past 4 months. I cross-referenced the dates with my calendar. Marcus had told me he was attending tech conferences. I'd even sent care packages to his hotel, addresses he'd given me that I now realized were fake. While I was packaging homemade cookies and love notes, he was making love to my cousin in a $2,000 a night suite. The evidence was overwhelming, but I needed more. I needed to understand the full scope of their betrayal. I opened social media and started digging through Sophia's posts with new eyes. The photos from the past 6 months told a different story now. The new jewelry she couldn't quite explain, the designer clothes on a teacher's salary, the mysterious girls' trips that never included me, and Marcus's posts. All those pictures of business dinners and networking events. I zoomed in on reflections in windows, background details, anything that might reveal the truth. There, in a photo from 3 weeks ago, Marcus at a client dinner, but reflected in the restaurant window behind him was a woman with Sophia's distinctive red hair. They hadn't even been careful. They'd been so confident in their deception that they'd gotten sloppy. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Can't wait for tomorrow. Your bachelorette party is going to be amazing. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Cuz. I stared at the message until the words blurred. Tomorrow. My bachelorette party, planned and hosted by the woman who was sleeping with my fiance, who thought she was going to replace me in 2 weeks. I typed back, can't wait either, it's going to be unforgettable. And it would be. Just not in the way she expected. I opened a new document on my laptop and began typing. Not a breakup letter. Not a confrontation plan. An invitation list. For the real party that was about to begin. By 3 a.m., I had everything I needed. Phone records, hotel receipts I'd accessed through Marcus's credit card statements, photos, message threads. The entire timeline of their affair laid out like a prosecution case. But I wasn't just gathering evidence for a breakup. I was gathering ammunition for a war. Because tomorrow wasn't just my bachelorette party. It was the beginning of their destruction. And they had no idea what was coming. I closed my laptop and smiled for the first time in hours. In 2 weeks, Marcus and Sophia thought they were getting everything they wanted. Instead, they were about to lose everything they had. The wedding would go on as planned. But the bride they thought they knew? She was already dead. I woke up that Saturday morning with perfect clarity. No tears, no heartbreak, no confusion, just cold, calculating purpose. The bachelorette party was set for 2 p.m. Sophia had booked a private room at Bella Corte, the upscale wine bar downtown. 12 women, all celebrating my upcoming marriage to a man who was betraying me with my maid of honor. I had 7 hours to set the stage for their destruction. First, I needed to confirm everything I'd discovered. I dressed carefully. Designer jeans, a cashmere sweater, diamond earrings Marcus had given me for our 6-month anniversary. I looked like the happy bride-to-be everyone expected to see. I drove to Marcus's penthouse. He'd given me a key 3 months ago, another symbol of trust that was about to become a weapon. His building's concierge, David, smiled when he saw me. "Good morning, Miss Rain. Mr. Williams isn't in. Left about an hour ago for his golf game." Perfect. Marcus's Saturday golf ritual with his business partners. 4 hours minimum. "Just grabbing some things for tonight," I said sweetly. "You know how we women are about packing." David chuckled. "Of course. Have a wonderful bachelorette party." If only he knew. Marcus's penthouse was a monument to his success. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, marble floors, custom furniture that cost more than most people's cars. I'd once imagined myself living here permanently, hosting dinner parties, maybe raising children in the spare bedrooms. Now, it felt like a mausoleum. I went straight to his office. Marcus was meticulous about his digital security for business, but personal matters? He'd grown careless around me. His laptop was password protected, but I'd watched him type it dozens of times. Leanne 2024. Our wedding year, the computer opened like a flower blooming. His email told the story I'd already pieced together, but seeing it in black and white made my chest tighten. Thread after thread with Sophia, dating back 7 months. Before our engagement party. Before he'd even proposed. The earliest emails were tentative, flirtatious. Sophia asking about his business, him complimenting her new haircut. Innocent enough until you read between the lines. Then came the confession email from Sophia, dated 3 days after our engagement party. "Marcus, I can't stop thinking about you. I know this is wrong. She's my cousin, my best friend. But what we talked about at the party, what almost happened. I can't pretend these feelings don't exist. If you feel even a fraction of what I'm feeling, please, let's meet. Just to talk." His response sent the same day. "Sophia, you're not alone in this. Leanne can never know, but yes, let's meet. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., the Marriott downtown, room 1247. Room 1247. The beginning of their affair, planned while I was probably at home addressing wedding invitations. I scrolled through months of correspondence. Plans for secret meetings, discussions about their future together, debates about when and how to end my relationship with Marcus. Sophia pushing for him to break up with me immediately. Marcus insisting they wait until after the wedding. "The business implications are too significant," he'd written. Leanne's father's company connections, her family's social circle. I need those relationships solidified first. After the wedding, after the honeymoon, I'll tell her I made a mistake, that I rushed into marriage too quickly. She'll be hurt, but she'll understand eventually. Her family's social circle. Dad's company connections. Even in death, my father was being used as a networking opportunity. But the worst email came from just 2 weeks ago. "I love you, Marcus. I know this situation is complicated, but after the wedding, when you're ready to start fresh, I want you to know I'm ready too. I've been saving money, and I've already started looking at apartments for us. Somewhere Leanne would never think to look. We can have the life we've dreamed about." Sophia was planning our future while helping me plan my wedding. I printed everything. 27 pages of evidence, each one a nail in their coffins. Next, I checked his phone records more thoroughly. The evidence I'd found last night was just the surface. The detailed records showed patterns I'd missed. Calls to Sophia immediately after our dinner dates, texts sent while we were watching movies together, even communication during our couples therapy sessions. They'd been laughing at me for months. I photographed everything, uploaded copies to multiple cloud accounts, and emailed the evidence to 3 different addresses I controlled. If anything happened to the originals, I'd have backups. Then I went to his bedroom, our bedroom, where I'd spent countless nights planning our future, and opened his closet. Hidden behind winter coats I'd never seen him wear was a small safe. I'd noticed it months ago, but never asked about it. Marcus was entitled to privacy, I'd thought. How naive. The safe required a 6-digit code. I tried our anniversary, his birthday, my birthday. Nothing. Then I tried Sophia's birthday. It opened. Inside were documents that made my blood freeze. A prenuptial agreement I'd never seen, one that would leave me with almost nothing if we divorced within the first 2 years of marriage. an insurance policy on my life, taken out 3 months ago, with Marcus as the sole beneficiary, and a folder labeled Investment Opportunities, Rain Family Assets. My hands shook as I opened the folder. It contained detailed financial information about my family's properties, my inheritance from Dad, even my personal savings accounts. Information Marcus could only have obtained through my mother. At the bottom of the folder was a handwritten note in Mom's handwriting. Marcus, Leanne's trust fund vests fully on her wedding day. Total value approximately $2.3 million, plus the Portland properties and Dad's life insurance payout. She'll have complete control starting the day after the ceremony. This should give you the timeline you need. Remember our agreement. Patricia. Our agreement. Mom hadn't just taken $50,000 to keep quiet about the affair. She'd provided Marcus with financial intelligence to help him plan the perfect theft of my inheritance. I photographed everything, replaced it exactly as I'd found it, and left the penthouse. But I wasn't going home. I had one more stop to make. Sophia lived in a converted loft downtown, the kind of trendy space that looked artistic, but cost a fortune. I'd helped her decorate it 2 years ago, back when I thought we were genuinely close. I still had a key from the times I'd watered her plants during her girls' trips. The trips that were actually romantic getaways with my fiance. Her loft told the same story as Marcus's emails, but from a different angle. The expensive jewelry I'd noticed in her social media photos was displayed prominently on her dresser. Designer clothes with tags still attached hung in her closet, clothes that cost more than her monthly teacher's salary. But the most damning evidence was in her bedside table drawer. Love letters from Marcus, handwritten on his company letterhead. Dozens of them, dating back months. Each one more passionate than anything he'd ever written to me. My darling Sophia. One began, "Every day I spend pretending to be happy with Leanne is another day stolen from our real life together. Soon, this charade will be over, and we can stop hiding. I love you more than I ever thought possible." Another, from just last week. "2 more weeks, my love. 2 more weeks of pretending, and then we can start planning our real future. I've been looking at rings. Not the gaudy monster I gave Leanne to keep up appearances, but something elegant and beautiful, like you. The gaudy monster. My engagement ring, the one I'd called the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, was just a prop in their performance." At the bottom of the stack was a letter that made me sit down heavily on Sophia's bed. "Sophia, my darling cousin, I know this will be hard to understand, but by the time you read this, Marcus and I will be gone. We never meant for it to happen this way, but we fell in love, and we can't deny it anymore. The wedding was a mistake. We both know that now. I hope someday you can forgive us. We'll be in Europe for a few months, giving everyone time to process this. When we come back, we hope we can rebuild our family relationships. I know you'll be hurt, but you're strong, and you'll find your own happiness. All my love, Leanne." They were planning to disappear after the wedding, leave me publicly humiliated, financially devastated, and emotionally destroyed while they started their new life together. The letter was in Sophia's handwriting, but it was signed with my name. She'd been practicing my signature. I took photos of everything, then sat on Sophia's couch and opened her laptop. She'd never been careful about digital security, and her password was pathetically simple. Sophia Teacher 123. Her email account was a treasure trove. Not just correspondence with Marcus, but conversations with her friends about the affair. Screenshots she'd sent of my text messages to her, with commentary about how clueless I was. Photos of the expensive gifts Marcus had bought her, showing off his generosity to her girlfriends. But the most revealing thread was with her sister, Carmen, who lived in Seattle. "I feel terrible about Leanne," Sophia had written 3 months ago, "but I can't help how I feel about Marcus. And honestly, she's always had everything handed to her. The trust fund, the perfect job, even Marcus. She didn't really fight for him, you know? Maybe this is the universe balancing things out." Carmen's response, "Soph, this is insane. She's your cousin. You grew up together. How can you do this to her?" "Because I love him," Sophia had replied. "And because she doesn't." "Not really. She loves the idea of him, the status, the money, but she doesn't know him like I do. We talk for hours about everything, his dreams, his fears, his real plans for the future. Leanne just sees the surface, the real plans for the future. Plans that apparently didn't include me past the wedding day. I forwarded the entire email thread to myself, then opened Sophia's social calendar. Tonight's bachelorette party was marked in pink hearts, with a note, Leanne's last hurrah. Make it memorable. It would be memorable, all right. I closed the laptop and checked the time. 12:30 p.m. 90 minutes until the party started. I drove home and spent an hour getting ready. Not for a celebration, but for a performance. I curled my hair, did my makeup flawlessly, chose the perfect outfit, the white dress Sophia had suggested for tonight, because you should look like the radiant bride you are. I looked exactly like the happy, trusting woman they expected to see. At 1:45 p.m., I received a text from Sophia. Almost ready. Can't wait to celebrate you today. This is going to be the best day ever. I replied, me too. Can't wait to see what you've planned. I have a feeling today is going to change everything. And it would. Just not in the way she imagined. I arrived at Bella Corte exactly on time. The private room was decorated with white and gold balloons, elegant floral arrangements, and photos of Marcus and me from throughout our relationship. Photos that now looked like evidence of a crime. Sophia greeted me at the door with a huge hug and a champagne flute. She looked beautiful, radiant even. The glow of a woman in love. To the future, Mrs. Williams, she announced to the room, raising her glass. 12 women raised their glasses and cheered. My aunts, my college friends, my coworkers, women who genuinely loved me and wanted to celebrate my happiness. Women who had no idea they were about to witness an execution. Thank you all for being here, I said, accepting the champagne but not drinking it. I needed to stay sharp. This means the world to me. There's nothing more important than family and friends who really know you. I looked directly at Sophia when I said it. She beamed. Before we start, I continued, I have something special planned. A little surprise that I think will make this day truly unforgettable. The room fell silent. Everyone's attention focused on me. I smiled my prettiest smile and set down my champagne glass. But first, let's play a game. The game I had in mind wasn't one anyone would forget. Ladies, I announced to the room, I thought it would be fun to share some secrets today. After all, what's a bachelorette party without a little truth-telling? The women laughed, settling into their chairs with fresh drinks. My college friend Maria clapped her hands together. Ooh, like truth or dare? Something like that, I smiled, pulling out my phone. I've been thinking about how lucky I am to have such honest, trustworthy people in my life. People who would never lie to me or keep secrets that could hurt me. Sophia shifted in her seat, but her smile never wavered. Lean, you're being so mysterious. What are you planning? Just a little sharing circle. I'll start. I stood up, phone in hand, the evidence I'd gathered burning like coals in my digital files. I want to tell you all about the most beautiful love story I've discovered recently. It's about two people who found each other against all odds, who've been carrying on a secret romance for months. The room went quiet. Several women exchanged glances. It's incredibly romantic, I continued. Secret meetings, passionate letters, stolen moments, the kind of love that makes people risk everything. Sophia's face had gone pale, but she forced a laugh. Leanne, what are you talking about? You're scaring everyone. Am I? I looked around the room. I think love stories are beautiful. Don't you want to hear about this one? My Aunt Linda leaned forward. Honey, maybe you should sit down. You seem a little intense. I'm just excited, I said. See, this love story involves people in this room, people who are very close to me. Look, the silence was deafening now. Everyone was staring at me, then at each other, trying to figure out what was happening. Leanne. Sophia's voice was sharp now, the pretense of celebration dropping. What exactly are you trying to say? I touched the screen of my phone, and Marcus's voice filled the room through the Bluetooth speaker I'd connected earlier. Patricia. Thank God. I thought you weren't going to pick up. Is she there? My mother's voice, slightly distorted but clearly audible. No. Good. Listen, Sophia's getting suspicious. She keeps asking questions about the Miami trip. What should I tell her? I stopped the recording. 12 faces stared at me in shock, but Sophia's face was pure white now, her hands trembling around her champagne flute. That was from last night, I said conversationally. My fiance calling my mother, talking about my maid of honor. Interesting conversation, don't you think? Leanne. Sophia started to stand. Sit down, I said quietly. Something in my voice made her drop back into her chair. We're not done with story time. I touched my phone again. This time it was Sophia's voice filling the room, reading from one of her emails. I love you, Marcus. I know this situation is complicated, but after the wedding, when you're ready to start fresh, I want you to know I'm ready too. The sound of her own voice confessing her betrayal seemed to paralyze Sophia. She sat frozen, staring at me like I was a stranger. 7 months, I said to the silent room. They've been having an affair for 7 months, since before our engagement party. My college friend Sarah stood up abruptly. Leanne, maybe we should talk about this privately. No. My voice cut through the room like glass. Privacy is what allowed this to happen. Secrets, everyone keeping quiet to protect everyone else's feelings. I looked at each woman in the room. How many of you knew? Silence. How many of you suspected something and decided it wasn't your business? More silence, but I could see the guilt on several faces, the pieces they'd noticed but dismissed, the strange looks between Marcus and Sophia at family gatherings, the way they always seemed to know each other's schedules. Leanne, please. Sophia finally found her voice. Let me explain. Explain what? I pulled up another recording. Explain this? Marcus's voice again, intimate and loving. My darling Sophia, every day I spend pretending to be happy with Leanne is another day stolen from our real life together. Sophia made a choking sound. I scrolled to another file. Or maybe you want to explain this? This time it was Sophia's voice, from her conversation with her sister. She's always had everything handed to her. The trust fund, the perfect job, even Marcus. She didn't really fight for him, you know? Maybe this is the universe balancing things out. The room exploded. Oh my God, Sophia! How could you do this? At her bachelorette party, several women were on their feet now, but I raised my hand for silence. Ladies, please, we're not done yet. I smiled at Sophia, who looked like she might vomit. Because the love story gets even better. Tell them about the money, Sophia. What money? Her voice was barely a whisper. The money Marcus has been spending on you. The jewelry, the clothes, the expensive trips. I showed the room photos from her social media, images I'd saved and annotated. A teacher's salary doesn't usually cover Cartier watches and weekend trips to Miami, does it? Sophia's hands flew to the necklace she was wearing, a delicate gold chain with a diamond pendant I now recognized from one of Marcus's credit card statements. Or maybe, I continued, you want to explain the money Marcus paid my mother to keep quiet about your affair? The room went completely silent. Even the background music from the restaurant seemed to fade away. $50,000, I said clearly. That's what my silence cost. What my trust was worth. What my mother accepted to help you destroy my life. My Aunt Linda gasped. Patricia knew. Patricia orchestrated it. I pulled up the note I'd found in Marcus's safe. She provided Marcus with detailed information about my inheritance, my trust fund, my financial situation. She helped him plan the perfect theft. I read Mom's note aloud, word for word. The room was so quiet I could hear several women crying. But here's my favorite part of the love story, I continued, my voice steady despite the fire burning in my chest. They weren't planning to end the charade after the wedding. They were planning to disappear together, leaving me with a forged suicide note. I showed the room photos of the letter Sophia had written in my handwriting, practicing my signature over and over. Sophia finally broke. Leanne, I never meant... It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? I stepped closer to her chair. You were going to fake my suicide? Make everyone think I killed myself because I couldn't handle married life? No. Sophia was crying now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. That letter, it wasn't. We were just going to leave. We thought maybe if you found it, you'd understand that we didn't want to hurt you. By faking my death? We weren't going to fake anything. We thought. She couldn't finish the sentence. You thought what? That I'd be so grateful for your thoughtfulness that I'd give you my blessing? I turned to address the room. Ladies, I need to share one more part of this beautiful love story, the ending they had planned. I pulled up Marcus's insurance policy on my life and the prenuptial agreement I'd never seen. After the wedding, I would have been worth more to Marcus dead than alive. Funny how that works. The room erupted again. Several women were on their feet, shouting at Sophia, demanding answers. My cousin sat in the middle of it all, sobbing and trying to explain, but her words were lost in the chaos. I raised my hand again, and somehow, through the noise, they heard me. But here's the thing, I said, and my voice carried a note that made everyone freeze. I'm not the victim they thought I was. I smiled, and for the first time all day, it was genuine. See, they made one crucial mistake. They assumed I was the same trusting, naive woman they'd been lying to for 7 months. They assumed I'd fall apart when I discovered the truth. They assumed I'd run away crying, leaving them free to console each other and continue their plans. I looked directly at Sophia. They assumed wrong. I pulled up one final file on my phone. Ladies, I'd like you to meet the real Marcus Williams. The recording that played was from earlier that morning, a conversation I'd captured using the listening device I'd hidden in his office yesterday evening. Marcus's voice, talking to someone on the phone. The stupid bitch has no idea. After the wedding, I'll have access to everything. The trust fund, the properties, all of it. Sophia thinks we're gonna run away together, but honestly, she's served her purpose. Leanne's cousin was the perfect way to get inside information, but she's becoming clingy. After I have Leanne's money, I might just keep the wife and dump the mistress. Why limit myself to one source of income when I can have multiple? The sound of Sophia's world crashing down was audible. She made a sound like a wounded animal. Turns out, I said pleasantly, neither of us was his endgame. We were both just means to an end. But I wasn't done. I had one more surprise. Oh, and Sophia? Since you're so concerned about money and fairness and who has what handed to them, I smiled. I thought you should know that I've been recording everything for the past 7 months. Every conversation, every family dinner, every moment when you looked me in the eye and lied. I held up a small device, including today. The realization hit her like a physical blow. You can't. You wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Share the truth about what kind of person you really are? The way you shared details about my private life with Marcus? The way you helped him plan to steal my inheritance? I looked around the room at the faces of women who'd known both of us since childhood. Ladies, I hope you've enjoyed today's entertainment, but we have one more game to play. I pulled out my laptop and connected it to the room's television screen. I call this game Guess Who's Been Lying? Let's see how many of you can identify which text messages came from my loving maid of honor and which came from my devoted fiance. Screenshots filled the screen. Messages mocking me, laughing about my pathetic romantic gestures, making fun of my trust and naivety. Plans for their future that involved draining my accounts and disappearing. And photos. Photos of them together that had been sent between them like private jokes. Marcus and Sophia in bed together in what I now recognized as my own apartment, taken during one of my business trips. Sophia wearing my engagement ring, posing for Marcus's camera with a mocking expression. The room was completely silent now, except for Sophia's quiet sobbing. The wedding is still on, I announced brightly. 2 weeks from today, as planned. Marcus doesn't know I know anything yet. He'll be there, expecting to marry his trusting fiancée and gain access to her fortune. I looked at Sophia. And you'll be there too, as my maid of honor, just like we planned. Leanne, please. Because here's what's going to happen, I continued as if she hadn't spoken. You're going to stand up at my wedding and give the maid of honor speech you've been preparing. The one about love and trust and family loyalty. Sophia's face went from white to green. And then, I smiled, I'm going to give a speech of my own. I closed my laptop and gathered my things. Ladies, thank you for coming today. I hope you've learned something valuable about the people in your lives and the secrets they keep. I stopped at the door and looked back at Sophia, who was still sitting in her chair like a broken doll. Oh, and Sophia? You might want to call Marcus tonight. Tell him about today. But here's the thing. If either of you tries to back out of the wedding, if you try to run or hide or call it off, I'll release everything I have to every news outlet, social media platform, and gossip blog in the city. I smiled sweetly. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Don't make me wait any longer for my revenge. I walked out of Bellacorte into the afternoon sunshine, leaving behind 12 stunned women and one utterly destroyed maid of honor. The real show was just beginning. 2 weeks later, I stood in the bridal suite of the grand ballroom looking at myself in the mirror. My wedding dress was perfect, a custom Vera Wang creation that had taken 6 months to design. Pearl beading caught the light as I moved, and the cathedral train spread behind me like spilled moonlight. I looked like every bride's dream of perfection. But the woman in the mirror wasn't the same Leanne who'd discovered her fiancé's betrayal 2 weeks ago. This woman was someone harder. Someone who'd spent 14 days planning the most elaborate revenge in family history. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Leanne, it's time for photos." My mother's voice. I hadn't spoken to her since the night I discovered her betrayal, but she'd shown up today anyway, playing the role of the proud mother of the bride. "Come in, Mom." She entered wearing a champagne-colored dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. Marcus's money, no doubt. Payment for services rendered. "You look beautiful, sweetheart." Her voice was tentative, like she wasn't sure if I was still angry. I turned to face her fully. "Do I? I was worried I might look like someone whose entire family betrayed her for money." Mom's face crumpled. "Leanne, please, we need to talk before." "Before what? Before I marry the man you helped steal my inheritance? Before I stand at an altar with the cousin you allowed to destroy my life?" "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she whispered. "How was it supposed to happen, Mom? Walk me through your perfect plan." She couldn't meet my eyes. "Marcus said he'd take care of you after the divorce, that you'd be comfortable, that he wouldn't leave you with nothing." "And you believed him? The man who was planning to fake my death?" "He wasn't. That insurance policy wasn't." "Wasn't what? Wasn't a clear sign that he valued me more dead than alive?" I stepped closer to her, my train rustling against the marble floor. "Tell me, Mom, what's your cut of my trust fund? 20%? 30? She flinched like I'd slapped her. I thought so. I turned back to the mirror and adjusted my veil. "Don't worry, you'll get exactly what you deserve today." Another knock at the door. This time it was Sophia. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, her skin pale and blotchy. The past 2 weeks had clearly been hell for her. "Good. Leanne," she said quietly, "we need to talk." "Do we? I thought we said everything we needed to say at my bachelorette party." "Please, just listen to me for 1 minute." I nodded to my mother, who reluctantly left the room. Then I turned to face the woman who'd been my best friend since childhood. "You have 1 minute." Sophia closed the door and leaned against it like she needed the support. "I know you hate me. I know you'll probably hate me forever, and I deserve that. But I need you to know that I never meant for it to go this far." "Which part? The affair, the lies, or helping Marcus plan to steal my money?" "I didn't know about the money. I swear to you, Leanne, I didn't know about the inheritance stuff or your mother's involvement or any of that financial planning. But you knew about the affair." She nodded miserably. "Yes, for 7 months. Yes. While I was planning our wedding, while I was asking for your advice about my marriage, while I was trusting you with every detail of my private life." Tears were streaming down her face now. I know how terrible it was. I tried to stop it so many times, but But you what? Fell in love?" "Yes." I laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to cut glass. "You fell in love with a man who was using you to get to me. A man who called you clingy and said he might dump you after he got my money. A man who never had any intention of choosing you over his meal ticket." Sophia's face went white. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording from Marcus's office. The one where he'd called her clingy and talked about keeping both the wife and the mistress. Watching Sophia's face as she heard Marcus's true feelings was almost worth the 2 weeks of hell I'd endured. "He never loved you," I said softly. "You were just a convenient way to get information about me and my family. A useful tool." Sophia slid down the door until she was sitting on the floor, her bridesmaid dress pooling around her like blood. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Leanne, I'm so sorry. If I could take it all back. But you can't." I checked my reflection one more time and picked up my bouquet. White roses and baby's breath, exactly what I dreamed of as a little girl. "So instead, you're going to help me finish this." "What do you mean?" I smiled at her. "You're going to give your maid of honor speech, exactly as planned. You're going to stand up in front of 300 people and talk about love and loyalty and family bonds. Leanne, I can't? Yes, you can. Because if you don't, everyone will know exactly what kind of person you are anyway, but you won't have the chance to try to make it right. She looked up at me from the floor, confused. I'm giving you a chance, Sophia. One chance to do the right thing, to help me expose Marcus for what he really is. I don't understand. I knelt down next to her, careful not to wrinkle my dress. Marcus thinks he's about to win everything. He thinks he's marrying a naive woman who trusts him completely, gaining access to a fortune, and keeping his mistress on the side. He has no idea that I know about any of it. Sophia was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Your maid of honor speech is going to be the last normal part of today, I continued. After that, I'm going to destroy him in front of everyone he's ever tried to impress. His business partners, his clients, his family, our friends, everyone. And you want me to help? I want you to choose. Right now, in this moment, you can choose to be the cousin who betrayed me or the cousin who helped me get justice. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Then she struggled to her feet and smoothed down her dress. What do you need me to do? I smiled, and for the first time in 2 weeks, it reached my eyes. Just give your speech. Leave the rest to me. 30 minutes later, I was walking down the aisle on my uncle's arm, my father having died 5 years earlier. The church was packed with 300 guests, all standing to watch me float toward my future husband. Marcus looked magnificent in his custom tuxedo. Tall, handsome, successful. The perfect groom. He was also wearing a wireless microphone I'd had the sound technician install, telling him it was for the ceremony. Marcus had no idea that every word he spoke would be broadcast not just to the wedding guests, but to the live stream I'd set up. A live stream that was being watched by his business competitors, his ex-girlfriends, and several investigative journalists I'd contacted about financial fraud in the tech industry. As I reached the altar, Marcus took my hands and smiled. You look incredible, he whispered. Thank you, I whispered back. I hope you're ready for the performance of your life. He looked confused, but the ceremony was starting. The officiant began the traditional words, and I played my part perfectly. The loving bride, the woman who trusted completely in the man beside her. When it came time for the ring exchange, Marcus slipped the wedding band onto my finger with hands that were completely steady. He had no idea what was coming. Do you, Marcus, take Leanne to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, forsaking all others, as long as you both shall live? I do, Marcus said clearly, his voice carrying through the church. Do you, Leanne, take Marcus to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, forsaking all others, as long as you both shall live? I looked into Marcus's eyes, seeing the triumph there. He thought he'd won. I do, I said. The officiant smiled. By the power vested in me by the state, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Marcus leaned in for the kiss that would seal his victory, and I let him kiss me, knowing it would be the last moment of happiness he'd experienced for a very long time. Ladies and gentlemen, the officiant announced, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Marcus Williams. The church erupted in applause. Rice and flower petals rained down on us as we walked back down the aisle, the perfect couple beginning their perfect life together. If only they knew. The reception was held in the hotel's grand ballroom, decorated with thousands of white flowers and crystal chandeliers. It looked like a fairy tale. It was about to become a nightmare. During cocktail hour, I mingled with our guests, playing the part of the radiant bride. I laughed at jokes, accepted congratulations, and posed for countless photos. But I was also watching Marcus charm his business partners, watching him accept praise for landing such a wonderful woman, watching him text someone on his phone when he thought no one was looking. Sophia, most likely, making plans for after the honeymoon. When dinner was served, I sat at the head table between Marcus and my uncle, surveying the room full of people who'd come to celebrate our love. The same people who were about to witness its destruction. During the meal, Marcus leaned over and whispered, Everything's perfect, Mrs. Williams, just like we planned. Yes, I agreed. Everything is exactly as planned. After dinner, the speeches began. My uncle spoke about family and tradition. Marcus's business partner talked about success and partnership, the usual wedding fare. Then it was time for the maid of honor speech. Sophia stood up, her hands shaking as she held her notes. She looked at me across the room, and I nodded slightly. Leanne and I have been family since birth, she began, her voice wavering only slightly. We've shared everything, secrets, dreams, even heartbreaks. The room was quiet, everyone listening to the traditional wedding speech. Leanne taught me what it means to trust completely, to love without reservation. She's always believed the best in people, even when they didn't deserve it. Marcus was smiling, probably thinking about how easily I'd trusted him. She's also taught me, Sophia continued, her voice growing stronger, what it means to be truly loyal, to stand by someone no matter what, even when it's hard, even when it costs you everything. She looked directly at me. Leanne, you are the strongest woman I know, and you deserve a love that matches your strength, your honesty, and your incredible capacity for forgiveness. She sat down to polite applause, and Marcus patted my hand. Beautiful speech, he murmured. Yes, I said. It was perfect. Now it was time for my speech. I stood up, and the room fell silent. Every face was turned toward me, expecting the traditional bride's speech about love and gratitude. They were about to get something very different. Thank you all for being here tonight, I began, my voice carrying clearly through the room. It means the world to me to have you witness this incredible day. Smiles and nods around the room. Marriage is about many things. Trust, honesty, partnership. It's about choosing to build a life with someone who shares your values and your vision for the future. Marcus was nodding along, still clueless. It's also about really knowing the person you're committing your life to, understanding who they are when no one is watching. I looked around the room, making eye contact with faces I'd known my whole life. So tonight, I want to share with you who my new husband really is. Marcus's smile faltered slightly. Marcus, honey, remember that recording you made in your office 3 weeks ago? The one where you were talking to your business partner about investment strategies? His face went white. I thought our guests might find it interesting. I nodded to the sound technician, and Marcus's voice filled the ballroom through the sound system. The stupid bitch has no idea. After the wedding, I'll have access to everything. The trust fund, the properties, all of it. The room went dead silent. Sophia thinks we're going to run away together, but honestly, she's served her purpose. Isabella's cousin was the perfect way to get inside information, but she's becoming clingy. Gasps were audible throughout the room now. Chairs were scraping as people turned to stare at Marcus, who looked like he was about to vomit. After I have Isabella's money, I might just keep the wife and dump the mistress. Why limit myself to one source of income when I can have multiple? The recording ended, and the silence was deafening. Marcus was on his feet now, his face purple with rage and panic. Isabella, what the hell? Sit down, husband, I said pleasantly. I'm not finished. Security guards, men I'd hired specifically for this moment, appeared at his shoulders. Marcus sat down. That recording was made 3 weeks ago, I continued, addressing the room as if nothing unusual had happened. But the affair it references has been going on much longer than that. I nodded again, and photos appeared on the screens around the room. Marcus and Sophia in compromising positions, time-stamped and geotagged. Several women screamed. Men were shouting. The room was in chaos, but my hired security kept everyone in their seats. 7 months, I said, my voice somehow carrying over the noise. My husband and my maid of honor have been betraying me for 7 months, planning to steal my inheritance and disappear together. I looked at Marcus, who was gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles were white. But here's the beautiful part, Marcus. You married me. 30 minutes ago, you legally bound yourself to me in front of 300 witnesses and a live stream that's been watched by over 10,000 people. His eyes widened as he realized what I'd done, which means that under our state's adultery laws, you're entitled to exactly nothing in our inevitable divorce. In fact, I'm entitled to damages for your infidelity. I smiled brightly at the room. I'm also entitled to half of everything you own. Your company, your properties, your investments, all of it. Marcus tried to stand again, but the security guards held him down. Isabella, you can't. This is insane. What's insane, I said, is thinking you could steal from me and get away with it. I pulled out a folder and opened it. Ladies and gentlemen, I have some additional information to share about my new husband. Marcus has been embezzling money from his own company for the past 2 years to fund his lifestyle and his affair. I held up bank statements and financial records. He's also been running a Ponzi scheme targeting elderly investors, promising them guaranteed returns while stealing their retirement savings. The room erupted again. Several of Marcus's business partners were on their feet, shouting questions and demands. The FBI will be here shortly to arrest him on multiple charges of fraud, embezzlement, and elder abuse. As if summoned by my words, federal agents appeared at the ballroom's entrances. Marcus finally broke. He lunged toward me, screaming incoherently, but the security guards restrained him easily. "Oh, and Marcus," I said as the FBI agents approached our table, "that prenuptial agreement you tried to hide from me, the one that would have left me with nothing, turns out it's not legally valid when it's signed under fraudulent circumstances." The lead FBI agent reached our table. "Marcus Williams, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit identity theft." As they cuffed him, Marcus looked at me with pure hatred. "You planned this," he snarled. "All of it. Every detail," I agreed. "From the moment I discovered your betrayal." I stood up and smoothed down my wedding dress. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending my wedding. I know it's not the celebration you expected, but I hope it's been educational." I looked around the room at the faces of family and friends who'd watched my perfect revenge unfold. "There's an open bar, and the band will continue playing. Please, enjoy the rest of your evening." I walked out of the ballroom in my $15,000 wedding dress, leaving behind my arrested husband, my sobbing cousin, and 300 witnesses to the most spectacular wedding disaster in family history. But I wasn't done yet. In the hotel lobby, I found my mother waiting with her suitcase. "Going somewhere, Mom?" She couldn't meet my eyes. I thought maybe it would be better if I left town for a while. "Probably," I agreed. "Especially since the IRS will want to talk to you about the money Marcus paid you. Turns out it counts as taxable income, and you never declared it." Her face went ashen. "Oh, and Mom? That $50,000 Marcus gave you? It was stolen from his elderly client's retirement accounts, which makes you an accessory to elder abuse." I handed her an envelope. "That's a lawyer's contact information. You're going to need it." I left her standing in the lobby and walked out into the night. 3 months later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, signing the final divorce papers. Marcus was in federal prison, serving a 15-year sentence. Sophia had fled to another state, but the scandal had followed her. She'd lost her teaching job and was working in a diner, according to the private investigator I'd hired to keep tabs on her. My mother had plea bargained down to probation and community service, but our relationship was over. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. "It's official," my lawyer said, handing me the decree. "You're a free woman, and a very wealthy one." Marcus's assets had been seized to pay back his victims, but as his wife, I'd been entitled to half of everything legitimate he owned, plus damages for his adultery, plus the life insurance policy he'd taken out on me. I was worth more than I'd ever dreamed possible. But the best part wasn't the money. The best part was the knowledge that I'd turned their betrayal into their destruction, that I'd taken their worst impulses and used them to build something better for myself. I walked out of the lawyer's office into the afternoon sunshine, a free woman in every sense of the word. Behind me, in a life I'd left in ruins, were the people who'd tried to destroy me. Ahead of me was everything I'd built from the ashes of their betrayal, and I was smiling. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting everything.